will join us. All right, it says we're live, and I am so excited to bring you this webinar today. As you can see, John Paulo is on his way, and we've also got another of our speakers, Inderpaul. But I'm really glad to also have Gemma Russell here with us. A bit of an intro about PPC Live UK and why we're doing this. We are, oh, sorry, my camera is going to come back on in a second. Sorry. That might happen. Just ignore it. I'm give it a bit of way. Tech issues, it will happen. So, but in our real life in-person event, no tech issues are going to happen, and this is why we are going to give you this little preview of our events that happens, and our first year event, 1 year anniversary event is happening on the 27th of July. I am so excited for it. I can't believe it. So yeah, PPC Live UK started about 12 months ago. I had this idea that I wanted us, the PPC community, especially the PPC UK community, to have a place where we can go, relax, hear amazing people talk about what's going on in paid search, what's going on in our current industry, and share the ideas, and not just have the speakers talk to us, but also have a healthy debate about what Google and even Facebook and what other brands are doing. And yeah, it's that's how it was born. And yeah, I started that. The first event was July 2022. And as I've said, we've had 6 events so far. But actually a PSA, especially for those who are the regulars to the event, it's going to be, we're not going to shift that to every 3 months. So after our July event, the next event is going to be October. But if you're signed up to our newsletter, which I hope you are, if you follow us on LinkedIn, if you're part of the PLU WhatsApp group, there's lots of faces. If you go on and follow us on our pages, anywhere that you follow us, I will definitely remind you about when the next event is. So right now, just preparing for the July event. We've got a great venue. I'm buying cake. Cake is going to be there. We're going to celebrate. Definitely, all of that. So yeah, I'm excited for that to happen. Yeah, without further ado, so I founded PPC Lab UK, but this is not for you to hear me talk. I feel like I've rambled on already for quite a bit. 2 minutes in, and none of the speakers have spoken yet. So I'm going to pass you over to Gemma Russell, who's going to be one of our speakers at the event at the end of this month. Gemma, please introduce yourself.
Hi, so I'm Gemma. I'm head of paid media at Fountain Partnership. Fountain are an agency, a performance marketing agency based in Norwich and also in Canada randomly. And we've got about 50 people that work for us. I've been doing PPC and paid media for 15 years or so. Really excited to talk about one of my favourite subjects, which is tracking and measurement. So yeah, really excited.
Awesome. And just in time, we have our second speaker who, we've got Inderpaul, who is also going to be one of our speakers at the event at the end of this month. So yeah, Indy, please introduce yourself.
Hey there, sorry, slight technical issues. So yeah, I'm Indy. I head up acquisition and performance marketing at ufurniture.com. So essentially we're a comparison website for furniture. So think Skyscanner for furniture. So I've been doing that for nearly 2 years now. But I've been in the industry for about 10 years, both agency side and client side. So quite a bit of experience.
Amazing. Welcome, Indy. And also a very special guest, Gianpaolo, I have known for several years, many years, I'd even call it. We've come across the paid search circus, speaking circus, to like Brighton SEO, HeroConf, and we were even I had the great honor of being the president of Paid Search Association, which he's a board member of. That it's an association that just helps paid search people also just chat, and they've got a Slack channel and they're on Twitter as well. But yeah, I'm not going to introduce him. Let John Paulo introduce himself.
Yeah, I've been working in this industry for longer than I wanted to remember, actually, because next year it would be, I think, 20 years. I started in 2003, more seriously on 2004. So it would be a lot of time. And just to present myself, I can say that I've founded the what is the largest all PPC events in Europe, actually. In outward experience, you may have guessed it. From something in the air. And that's all, actually. I know we know we have been in touch for I think 7-8 years. Brighton SEO or some everywhere in the world of PPC, but that's not the matter. Let's go on to the topic.
To the topic. So yes, so what I titled this topic was like AI is killing how you've done conversion tracking. You know, everybody likes a catchy title. That's what they, and when all the content specialists always go with a very catchy title. So, but what I really wanted to talk about is that, you know, India is going to be talking about AI and how the learnings from the past are going to you know, teach us. Actually, you know what? I'll do the description that we have for his talk. So yeah, he's going to be talking about how PPC has evolved a lot over the years, and with Google having a pivotal role in its shape and trajectory, and with the introduction of Bard, we all know about that, and several other updates. We'll also explore the potential of generative AI in transforming the PPC and search landscape. So the talk will be touching on how generative AI and search are already impacting a practitioner's day-to-day work, and stack improving productivity with ad generation and testing, and how we might be able to harness the potential of these changes. I feel that's a bit of a mouthful, to be fair, but that's the kind of thing you read. That's the kind of thing people want on an events page. But Indy, what will you be bringing to us on this talk?
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of summarized it well there, but yeah, I think to touch on it briefly, but Google have been telling us what they've been doing without telling us over the last sort of 2-3 years, particularly with the move with what they've been doing with broad match, essentially getting rid of exact match. They've already got rid of broad match modified. It's all been about consolidation of campaigns, moving to PMAX. It's all been about let us control everything. You can still have certain levers to try and push and pull stuff like in the past, but it's no longer about being as granular as possible and trying to control every single search term, every single keyword. It's all come down to essentially what's conversational search. So it's what's happening now with generative search with Bard and ChatGPT and the new Bing is exactly what we thought was going to happen, or what we were told was going to happen with voice search 3-4 years ago. So seeing that happen now in real life is quite exciting, and quite a big difference in terms of mindset and how we're actually going to be able to do marketing.
Amazing. We'll come back to that as well. But what I also want to make sure I introduce what Gemma is also going to be talking about, and I'll give a brief description as well of what she's going to be talking about. So she goes, as PPCers, we focus on generating qualified leads, sales, revenue, and profitability. And with customer journeys becoming more and more complex, and the advent of GA4, my thoughts and prayers to everybody who had to deal with clients who migrated to GA4 this week. So with the advent of GA4 and AI, it's time to rethink our audience targeting and campaign planning. And in this talk, we'll cover what is a micro conversion, measuring them in GA4 especially, plus applying this to audience creation and layering campaigns according to their differing objectives. So Gemma, what's a micro conversion? Why is it important?
Well, I think it's a micro conversion is any kind of small thing that someone will do before they commit to buying or contacting you, really. And I think I guess people tend to dismiss that, and particularly PPCers, as the fluffy stuff, but it really isn't, because, you know, for any kind of purchase or any kind of sale, people don't just go straight to the big, you know, they're not just going to commit to spending £5,000 a month with you, or it's just not going to happen. And I think GA4 is a really great opportunity for a reset. And I think that's the reason why I wanted to talk about it, because there's the kind of fun of not all events are created equally. So actually GA4 is an event-based model, but there's so many different ways that you can do it that opens up a whole other can of worms. But the possibilities with events and audiences and sequencing and all of this really quite exciting stuff that you can now do I think that it's good to revisit it and think about how you can make that work and how you can connect that to getting your ultimate goal, which is generally a qualified lead or a sale or revenue and ROAS and all of that stuff. That's still obviously important, but it's how all of it fits together. So I'm quite, funnily enough, I've been planning it today actually. So I've been quite excited about talking about it. But yeah, that's what I'm going to cover.
Amazing. And you make a very fair point there, because with the industry changing so much, I mean, especially on Twitter, we get a lot annoyed with things that goes on with it. But I do think what it does is that it really weeds out the people who have just been doing things how they've always been doing things, and not really trying to do things better and doing things well and doing things according to best practice. And so they just some changes that some of these platforms put in place that are like, we're just going to get rid of the bad ways of doing things. And then it catches the people out who have just been doing things that, kind of lazy ways, what I'd call it. So these massive changes, as much as it's a bit of like a shock to the system, those who know their jobs well, those who are the true, I feel, paid search professionals and experts, they know how to manage with the change. They know how to think, okay, this is a chance for me to learn something new. This is a chance for me to, put myself ahead against my competitors. You agree, Gemma?
Yeah, I do. And I think that's what scared, I mean, I guess, we've all had to deal with it now, but that's, I think, what really scared people about GA4 is it was a true blank slate. And that in itself, UA was an out the box. This is what you look at. You must look at these reports because this is what we've given you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, I'm probably not alone in the fact that custom reports in UA, I didn't really ever get on with them that well. To be honest with you, because what things work with what dimensions and metrics work together, and it even for me, I wasn't really my friend. But now with GA4, and I know it's still evolving, they're still adding things. I mean, you probably saw today that the Looker Studio connector has added like 170 different things today. So it's still very much evolving and very much kind of changing. But even the way that it works, and just I like the customizable element of it, for me, I think is what's exciting. And like you said, you kind of need to think about how you can make that work for every client or every situation. So I think that's quite exciting. I mean, it also probably a bit daunting, admittedly, but
yeah,
it does present a big opportunity. And I think that's what I've always been excited about when it came to GA4. And now we're being forced to do it, which ultimately for a lot of people, they don't like change. Well, they have to deal with it now anyway if they're using Google. So
yeah. And Gianpaolo, let's hear from you. Like, so what's your view on how? Let's even go to the title. Do you feel AI has affected GA4, or do you think GA4 is its own separate beast that we have to look into?
Oh, it's definitely not killed it, but more the opposite. It helped it, in my opinion. Helped to have a clearer view of the channels which are bringing more conversions in. Yes, GA4 is more difficult. Yes, yes, it is. But it's more precise and more reliable. In every cases, I've had the chance to confront data, and it's ready for a cookieless world. So it's if you wanted to do the same thing, you've chosen the wrong industry to work in. The internet is not your field. I think that there are a lot of. I strongly suggest to join Gemma's speech, because there are a lot of very useful tips on how you can feed the monster. The monster is Google. Understand what works best in terms of conversions of what is going to pay our bills at the end of the month. So there are a lot of tricks, a lot of things one can do to feed better the machine, and GA4 is really helpful out of this view. And probably I think it's the best innovation we could, as professional, expect from Google. But even if evolution is not the right term for GA4, I would say they're finishing it. They're still finishing. But anyway, that's my thought.
No, of course. No, thank you for that, Gianpaolo. And Indy, going back to you in terms of like talking about AI, and I remember when you did your introduction, you said something stuck out to me about there have been other things that we've been like, oh, it's the age of, and we've done the age of voice search. There was a time where it was the age of mobile and all of that. And, you know, and this is all the age of that we thought that those things are going to revolutionize.
Finally, take the age of analytics, finally, maybe.
Yeah, finally. But I feel like the most impactful things don't even have time for us to actually do the whole announcement of the age of. We entered the age of AI before anyone could do the age of AI. So how is it that I feel AI was able to be so quiet and creep up on us, and then all of a sudden, boom, it was a thing? Do you have any thoughts on that, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's as a concept, I think it's been around for a while, and age of mobile actually is a great example of that. As a concept, I think I first started hearing that when I first entered the industry, like 2012, 2013. We were hearing it's the year of mobile every single year. But it's taken a while for that concept to really change the mindset of how I approach things. But then secondly, the technology has to catch up as well. And it took a long time for the technology to catch up with mobile. And it was actually, 4G really is what really escalated mobile and really became the year of mobile whenever 4G came out and became adopted by everyone. Because until then, the user experience on a mobile it was just far too slow to browse the internet. So no one really did, not to purchase anything anyway. So, and it's the same with AI. I think AI has been around for such a long time, and the concept of it is going to revolutionize. It's going to, take everyone's jobs and all that sort of, big headlines. But the technology had never really been there. Like ChatGPT has been around for years, different versions of it, like 1, 2, and 3. But it's only in the last sort of year, probably about 18 months ago, is when I first used it, and it wasn't great, particularly for anything more than a paragraph. It was really clunky, and it just wasn't worth it. It took more time editing it than it did actually coming up with it yourself. So it just was never really going to take off. But I think it was back in October, November when 3.5 was released, and that was a real step change in the quality that it was able to give you, providing you provide the right prompts. You give it a 3-word question, it's not really going to do much for you. But if you give it real detailed instructions in terms of what you want, it can deliver quality results. And then opening the APIs up for people to then build on that. That's what's really sparked things in the last sort of 6 months with AI.
Awesome. And how about you, Gemma? Because I know you're speaking about GA4, but everyone has an opinion in AI.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I kind of wonder if you almost need to. You made a really good point, Indy, about how you use it, because I think it's almost like you need to understand how to get the most out of it. And I wonder if just by default, because that's where obviously the new search experience, is kind of coming from, isn't it? It's a similar kind of angle. It's almost very detailed, long kind of searches, very long informational searches that are going to trigger those kind of results. And I wonder if I suppose it's almost akin to driving a petrol car versus driving an electric car. Fundamentally, they're the same, but the way that you would save energy and all of that stuff would kind of be a different way of driving. And people always talk about that. So I wonder if it's a similar kind of thing, because I don't know. I think you just kind of roll with it. I think we've been working with AI for so long in different forms, like down to automated bidding. Like smart bidding has been around for, I don't know, a long time, and it's only really probably circa 5 years ago maybe that it actually started being decent. But we've just kind of, it slowly kind of crept up on us a bit. And I guess I feel like as a PPCer, we've just been, I don't mean living with it in a really weird way, but like we've just been dealing with it. And then like you get insights, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're a bit rubbish, you know, and sometimes they're reflective of your industry and sometimes they're not. And I guess we just kind of learn, I guess as a PPCer, we've probably adapted to it better than we think we have, because we've actually been given it and we're kind of aware of its limitations and testing it and kind of almost understanding how it works. And the same with like auto applied recommendations. I mean, the idea of them, but you kind of know, if I don't learn how these work, Google are just they're going to put them on us anyway. So it's really important that we understand how an AAR recommendation is applied and what it does and at what point it works, so that we can work with it and then use the ones that we want for our advantage. So I think I don't know, I'm always of the opinion that you should test and learn and understand these things, and then, you know, work them to your advantage, if you like, and your client's advantage, and, you know, your business's advantage. But yeah, it's a really odd, it's like a slow burn almost, isn't it? I don't know if that's just me, but for me, when I sat and thought about it, I thought, actually, this has been going on for a really long, like you say, a really long time. But yeah.
Yeah, you made a really...
Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, so you really made a really good point there around the test and learn approach. I think that's what's really encapsulated this industry of PPCers. The ones that have really been successful in this industry have always tested and learned and tested the sort of methodologies that haven't believed everything that's been told to them. They've gone ahead, tried it out, tried to break it, tried to improve it, and then learn from that and share their learnings with the industry. That will continue to happen with AI. So it's not a case of, I mentioned earlier, like the big headline is going to take your jobs. It's not, because you need to understand how to use it. You need to learn how to use it, and you can only do that through test and learning, which is what we've been doing for, well, certainly throughout my entire career and probably before that.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Gianpaolo? Sorry, I feel like we cut you off and you had some great ideas that you wanted to talk about.
You know, AI is sexy, it's mysterious, it's something magic sometimes. GA4, Google Ads are boring for most of the people, so that's why it's so you get the scenes. But we all, as Gemma and Andy said, we have been working for it for years now, and the process has already been changing, and maybe it's more evident now, but this has been always like that. Probably ChatGPT made it more evident. I made the emerging natural language models have been simply made it more attractive to the mass of web users. But we have been confronting with AI for years now.
Yeah.
Performance max or something like that is only the last bricks of the wall around us. So so probably nothing to be something to be that have to be regulated.
Yeah.
That's I'm sure we need some more rules on how to use it outside the applications we are all used to use every day, like GA4 and Google Ads, which are simply some tools which do a very specific thing, and so AI can always improve this way of doing things. But it's outside this box. This is definitely something that has to be regulated very, very carefully.
It's very interesting that you make that point, because one of our questions, and thank you to our audience members, thank you to everyone listening that has tuned in. If you came in a little bit late, just to let you know that, we are talking about AI and about conversion tracking, especially micro conversions that Gemma and Indy are going to be talking about at the end of this month on the 27th of July. So please do join us then. And yeah, someone has asked the question, are there any potential ethical concerns or risks associated with AI and in conversion tracking, especially using AI in conversion tracking, and how should these be addressed? If not about using AI in conversion tracking, but if we can also even talk about ethical concerns in using AI in general, but like either one. Can I come to you, Gemma, for that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, if I talk about the conversion tracking side of things, perhaps more than the ethics, but I kind of perhaps one and the same in some respects. But I think the thing for me is understanding the quality of the conversion modeling, because I think that's where things are going to get interesting, because there's an element of conversion modeling with GA4. With Google Ads, you've got enhanced conversions. Then you've also got, if you're using consent mode, you've also going to have the modeling that comes as part of consent mode. So it all gets very confusing and interesting. How accurate is that? And I know from a previous talk that we saw at PPC Live where someone was advocating server-side tracking and why you should go down that route. Basically, with all of those kind of parts, I guess it's going to be really interesting to know which one is actually accurate. How good is conversion modeling, and how biased is it? You know, I mean, there's probably unconscious biases that it's probably using that we don't know or even understand, and how is that going to impact the decisions we make, the budgets that we allocate to campaigns, and all of this stuff. I mean, it's a real, I feel like it's a little bit of an unknown at the moment, but it is a very valid question, because, you know, and when with cookie consent, and obviously with that and the way that that's going to change, I mean, it's going to make things, I mean, all of those parts make this very confusing, to be honest with you. I'm not going to pretend in any way simple, or I have really any kind of idea right now for every person how that all fits together. But I think it's something you're going to have to monitor and try and understand. And I know we talked about test and learn, but it's a similar thing. My kind of mind goes to trying to figure out how all those things work, and like, are they doing the job they should be doing, or are they actually making unconscious decisions about things that they shouldn't be, or pushing certain ads to certain people? Because this is, I get where that's going. Like, you know, there could be, I don't know. I think there is a possibility that it might be showing people ads that it thinks, you know, you want to see, based on judgments and misconceptions and things that actually just aren't right. So there is a danger of that, and how that's regulated and managed, I think, is a really big question, because I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has any kind of ideas on what they think and how that can work, but I think there is a possibility that it could force certain things on certain people that you don't want to see, you're not interested in. I don't know. It could be a funny one, I think.
How about you, Indy? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to take a certain leap of faith for some of these things because of the black box nature of it. But ultimately, the results are only going to be as good as the data you're going to feed it. So it comes back to the point that Gemma was making around micro conversions. What are those steps that are really important to make that conversion? Because if you're only feeding these data-driven models or AI models, if you're only telling it the endpoint, the sale, it's going to optimize for that. And it's not going to optimize for the other things because it doesn't know about them. So you're going to have to use your detective hats when it comes to measuring performance, and understand, okay, what information am I giving? Is that actually relevant, or am I giving it all the pertinent information to be able to get the best end result out of it? Even if you can't see behind the black box, you can see what goes into it in the first place. So that's the part we'll control. We will control is the beginning point, and I'm trying to understand the end point. Obviously, there's a messy middle in there as well, but we're not going to be able to control that part so much, unfortunately.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just going to read a very nice comment that has been sent by Daniel Bebb. He says, "This is one of the most exciting times to be in paid media. It's all about embracing the change and finding what does and doesn't work across industry. It also promotes coming back to previous tests too, because of the speed that the tech is evolving." And I think that he makes a very fair point there in terms of like, we need to remember that it is about test and learning, as Gemma has touched upon. And this could be a great opportunity with there being new technology here. You can go back to tests that you've given up in the past because the results could be really different now. I mean, how about you, Gianpaolo? What do you think about going back to old tests?
Well, it's a way. It's something you can test. Probably the best thing, in my opinion, is to embrace new ways of structuring campaigns and testing new tools. I wouldn't turn back to something you did in the past. Yes, of course, it maybe now works, but I think we have to shift our mindset and that's particularly difficult for someone who has worked in this field for a while. Things are changing rapidly and very fast in the last 2 years, one year and a half, with the coming of Performance Max. The Performance Max, if they are going to be the future, and some proof of it are quite evident, they are going to change our way of working, and I think, of course, AI could have some implications in ethics, even if I think it's quite difficult to spot them within Google Ads. Actually, it may be breaking some privacy rules, but not so deep ethical problems, in my opinion. But anyway, it's something, as Indy said, it's a black box. So you have to be sure that the black box doesn't do something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to control a black box.
No, it's not. So this is not supposed to be an hour-long webinar. We are going to be wrapping up in not too long. I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and one for Indy, one for Gemma, and of course, Gianpaolo, you can definitely contributing for either of them. And so I'm going to ask Indy one question. How impactful do you see generative AI search being, and what can SMEs and search media advisors and paid search professionals do now to prepare for it, like in terms of how much it's even going to continue to change in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest change for PPC with regards to that is going to be the nature of the queries. So mentioned earlier, the killing of exact match, it's going to come. It's going to be impossible to do exact match, mainly because you have a 10-word limit on keywords. I think it's 10 words, but you can't do more than that. Yeah. So most of these queries are going to be much more than 10 words. So it's going to be impossible to go for those queries. You're going to have to trust DSAs, which are probably going to be folded into Performance Max in the future. So you're just going to have to trust Performance Max, but you're going to have to feed it the right information to surface with the right queries. That's going to come down to the content of your website, more or less, a bit like DSAs, making sure the landing pages are tailored to the wordings, the phrases, you're answering the right questions on your website. If you're doing that, you're more likely to appear for those searches on PPC. So it's almost becoming a bit like SEO, I think, in a lot of ways. And that's going to be the mindset change for us. And actually, as you asked, what's one of the things you can do? I'd say work with your SEO teams to understand what queries you want to appear for on your website, because that's going to help you in the future once these changes become real.
I love that advice, because I am so pro PPC, work with SEO people. I've been saying this for years. So I'm just so happy that you just mentioned that. I promise we did not discuss that before this webinar for him to say that. So that delights me. Like the second PPC Live UK event we had Crystal Carter, who works for Wix. She's like the SEO comms manager for Wix, like head of SEO comms, and she came to talk about how SEO and PPC can work together, because I feel like a lot of their jargon is very similar to PPC jargon, and or you can find similarities. They do content, we call it PPC ads. They do keyword research, we do keyword research. That's not even a translation. We do the same thing. And, and we also, I feel, need to work very closely with like CRO teams, so conversion rate optimization teams, and people who are working on the landing page, the people who are doing the content on the landing pages, so that it's better works for PPC. So yeah, totally agree with that, Indy. Does anybody else have, Gemma, Gianpaolo, do you have any thoughts in terms of advice for how SMEs need to prepare for how generative AI is going to change?
Only small things. I just wondered about like image extensions actually, and whether, because I was thinking with the nature of the results being more image based, I think also feeding it better quality images, and even for clients where you think, images are going to be quite difficult, I wonder how that's going to play out, because I think that feels like that's part of that experience a bit more, doesn't it, as well? And I wonder if that could be an interesting one, especially for industries where they're not necessarily so image led. But no, otherwise I completely agree. I think it's and I think SEOs have been shifting more towards sort of user intent rather than traditional keyword research for quite some time. So I think that fits in really nicely with that mindset as well, doesn't it? So I think that'll be really interesting. But yeah, I think 100% agree with everything you said.
And Gianpaolo, any advice for SMEs?
Yeah, I would advise newcomers, even experienced PPCers, to pay attention to branded keys, branded searches, because and even remarketing, which are the first things we usually address to get conversions, of course. It's the same for AI, incredibly. And if you give the freedom to performance max or everything else AI powered, they of course will turn to brand and remarketing, and that's something we can do at a lower cost probably, and even something we can watch at very easily in Google Ads with old school campaigns. So don't let AI play with your brand and with your remarketing without any control, because it will do it, and it will do probably with less performance of what you can do in the old way. So that's a little suggestion. I think it's good for new specialists and for experienced PPCs.
Amazing. And then, so the second question for Gemma now: how does setting values to micro conversions differ between SaaS, e-com, and lead gen kind of companies? Yeah.
Well, I think in some ways it depends. I mean, if you've got the data there, then in theory you should be able to understand. And once you've been measuring the micro conversions and you've got the data, you should then be able to understand how valuable a sale is, and then obviously ultimately work backwards. So you could set static values, I guess, so that that somebody signs up for a newsletter, they're probably it's a percentage, say 10% of the value of the sale in the end or something like that. But I think some of these CRMs like HubSpot can do it dynamically, which means that if you're then securing like an enterprise sale versus a smaller customer sale, you can then attribute more or less value. So I think there's some quite clever stuff that you can do, and I think it can be quite valuable. But I think even if you just go down to like ratios, so for example, like that this is worth 33% of a sale generally, and you do it in that way, I think there's still value in value-based bidding. I think you just really need to try and be as absolutely accurate as you can. And depending on how much data you've got, the accuracy of the data and your ability to then basically calculate the values, I think it can get quite complicated. And I think that's when you do need to be careful that you're not overdoing it and making it more complicated than it needs to be and stuff. So I really think it is something which you need to put a lot of thought and time into and do it as accurate as you can. But it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. And with some of like things like Shopify, like I say, HubSpot, and some of these, you know, more and more people are using these out of the box CRMs that mean that you can do it more effectively, I would say. But in an absolute ideal world, I'd go for dynamic values. But if you can't do that, then I think you're probably going to have to think about, you know, generally look at what generates the highest value sales, what generates the highest value conversions, and then attribute values based on that. You know, that kind of thing, or how early or say, for example, you know that a phone call, only 1 in 10 phone calls, you know, generated, you know, a meeting, whereas I don't know, 50% of form fills actually end up being a meeting, then you just, you know, attribute the values accordingly. So I think it's just a terrible answer, but it depends. That's the answer I give for everything. It just depends. So I feel like you're going to get similar things, test and learn, and it depends. And I think if you've ever been in a meeting with me, you've probably heard me say those things.
Lots
So,
of people,
yeah.
marketers, SEO people, it depends, and a lot of things depends. So I'm going to start wrapping this up, and but before I go, the whole point of having this webinar is to give you guys a taste of 2 of our amazing speakers that are going to be talking on July the 27th. And if you want to go get tickets for that, please go to bit.ly/PPC Live UK JUL 23. That should be showing up in the comments in a moment now. I'd also encourage you that if you please subscribe to our newsletter. There's another one for that, just the same bit.ly link, /PLU newsletter. And we've also got like an amazing WhatsApp conversation that goes on, just a WhatsApp chat with, I know like Twitter is a little bit on fire for us, I think, because I don't even know what's going on. I'm not going to talk about Twitter because they really upset me this week. And I know Threads has started off today, but I don't know about that as well. That's probably just going to be, I don't know, end up being like another similar Twitter. Who knows? Because Zuckerberg, only God knows what he's doing with all our data, right? But yeah, we've got what the WhatsApp chat. Also go to bit.ly link and it's /PLU WhatsApp. We'd love to have you there. It's a very lively chat. You ask questions, someone immediately there is answering for you. So yeah, please join us on one of those links. But I just want to thank all our speakers. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Gianpaolo. Thank you, Indy. And a special thank you, Gianpaolo, who is as part of AdWorld Experience. He is one of our not silver, gold sponsors. That is like even like a higher level, sponsoring the event, sponsoring our end of the month event. So thank you very much for the partnership, Gianpaolo. And for as many of you guys are going to be there at the end of this month, I look forward to seeing you there. And if you have any questions, in fact, this live chat is then going to be recorded. So if you want to come back to what we've talked about, I'll be sharing the links of it. And but yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you everybody for who participated. Thank you to our speakers, and hope to see you on the 27th of July. Bye.
Do you want to give away the codes, the coupon code for AdWorld Experience?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Gianpaolo. So yeah, we got some great questions in. I asked them for some questions beforehand, but it's more the winner of the best question gets the code, right? So we don't just give it to everybody, do we, Gianpaolo?
Okay. So please, anyway, I haven't put a limit, number limit of it. So if you're fast, you can. You can.
Absolutely. So Gianpaolo is being very generous because he's got his event. Actually, talk about the event you're talking about while I look for the codes. Like, yeah, we're gonna give you like a free for an event.
Okay, I just agreed with Anu to give away some live streaming free passes for AdWorld Experience, which will be on October 5th, the 5th and the 6th in Bologna, Italy. And we just didn't agree the mechanism on it, but we said, okay, make it simple, make it simple, and the thing, I think it could be interesting, could be amusing also to simply say who has reached the end of this webinar, to who has seen it till the end, could try to use the coupon code, and we'll see if you are not so many. I will give away this free streaming.
Fantastic. We're not limiting it. So to just confirm, that is for the live streaming of it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then so the 1 day experience. Because I'm on the site now. So the 1 day experience.
If you want to taste tortellini and mortadella, you have to come to Bologna.
You have to come to, and I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it to anyone who can. Yeah, it'll be a great experience to have. So yes, as the last technical issue you're gonna have to deal with now. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of the afternoon, and yes, hope to see you at the end of this month, July 27th, for the next PPC Live UK, where we'll be celebrating our 1 year anniversary. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.